short introduction on how to create shape layers, how to use shapes, and how to edit them within Photoshop. So basically what we want to do here is we want to create shapes that are controlled by vectors or paths as it's called in Illustrator, in Photoshop. Um, and we want them to be, we want to create them in different ways. And we want to be able to add some effects that you can use in Photoshop afterwards to make something that looks really cool. Now, since it's a demonstration, I just want to make a disclaimer here. I might not end up making something that looks totally awesome, but nonetheless, I think that I'm going to show some of the techniques on how to work with these shape layers. So the first thing I want to show you is the shape tool. And you'll find this over here, draw custom shape or draw shape tool. Now it might not look like this for you, it might look like this, so it depends on what tool you use the last one. But what this does, what all of these does is that they draw vector lines, and if you choose the ones that are closed here, you'll draw a shape and create a shape layer. You'll see here that it's defined with a fill and a stroke, just like you'll find in Illustrator. So if I draw a shape here, you'll see that it becomes a square, and even though I pick this one, it's still actually a square, and I can rescale it and so forth without losing resolution. So if I want to create another square here, I can do like this. It will then create another layer that is similar to the first one. So these layers are now separate layers, and if I want to move around with these, I can do so by clicking on these different layers and selecting them, moving them around like so. So at the moment these are all on separate layers, but let's imagine for a second that I want to create something on the same layer, or maybe I want to have the shapes interact with each other. In this case, I'll just choose my rectangle layer here again. I'll choose my shape tool, and now instead of choosing, I'll go up here in the settings, and at this point here you can see that now it's set to create new layer. But I can actually also set it to combine shapes, subtract from shapes, intersect with shape areas, and so forth. So what I'll do here is I'll just say combine shapes, and now when I draw a new shape, you'll see that it keeps the same layer over here, but it's now actually drawing a new shape. So if I move this around, this layer around, it's all in one big bundle here. And if I want to move around with these squares, now I have to choose the path selection tool, and now I can choose these different elements that are now paths and move those around within that shape layer. And of course, this being a Photoshop layer, I can add all kinds of different things like gradient fills and so forth, but I'll come back to that in a second. So this is just creating with the basic shapes here. There are some shapes that we will use a lot, like squares, rounded squares, ellipses, polygon tools, things that we use fairly often. But there are also what is called custom shapes tools, and these shapes are shapes that have been created already within Photoshop that are easy to access. So you can see here when I choose this tool, I'll have the option to choose from different elements here, and there are leaf trees, wild animals, boats, flowers, and so forth. And here I can choose these. If I was to choose, for instance, a tree, let's just take this one here. I'll double click on it, and when I click here, you can see that now it asks me what size I want to place it in, and whether I want to place it from center or whether I want to preserve the proportions of the original file. Now, this being a vector file, of course, it doesn't really matter, so I'll just place it like this. And you can see that it creates a shape layer that is named from what I'm having. I have it here. If I want to change the color of a layer, I'll simply double click on the layer, and I can choose a different color here for these layers here. So rather than having a pixel-based layer that I would have to paint again, and with the risk of destroying some of the pixels, I actually can just choose the color here from the settings, and I think this is a really cool way of creating content as you go along. So apart from using these tools, we can also create things with the pen tool. And if I was to go in and draw a shape here, let's say I want to have something here with the pen tool, it will automatically create a shape layer, providing that this part up here is set to path. Now notice that there is something called path and shape. So actually, well, I was wrong here. The reason why this is drawn like this is because I'm still in the maple tree layer. So let's just go back here for a short while, and let's instead create a new layer to work with and use the pen tool. Now if it's set to path like this, it will just create a path. But if I want this to be a complete shape, I need to make it into a shape like this, and you can see it disappears again. So now I have to draw it again, and it will then become a path. Another way of doing this is, if I really don't want to lose the shape that I had created earlier on, I can take this one. Let's say I had created this shape here that I'm really happy about. Crap. Let's just say that I had this shape here, and I just want to delete this layer again. Sorry for my language there. Let's just say that I had created a path that I was really happy about, and I wanted to create this into a new layer. Now the way to do this is, if you have selected the path like this, you can go down here on the layer menu and you can say, I want to create a solid layer, a solid color layer. Then it will create a solid color layer with the color that you've chosen as your foreground color, and with the shape that you chose before as your shape here. There is a second way of doing this, but this is not a shape layer. This is where you create a color fill within a layer, and then you use the vector mask for that. But I'm not going to show you that right now. So this is just to say that there are these different ways of creating shapes within Photoshop. And there are a lot of different ways of using this. I'm just going to drop some of these now here, because I think I want to come back to this. Now what is left here is a path. It doesn't have a layer, it's just a path. So over here in path, you'll find this, and if you want to delete it, you can just do like this. So back here to having a square level. So let's say I wanted to create a path in a different tool, like for instance Illustrator. So here I have a number of silhouettes. These you can actually find and download for free if you want to and use them. I didn't use the time to draw this. But let's just say that we wanted to make something with a female shape here. So I would go into this in Illustrator, make sure I selected the path that I want, and then I would use Command C, which means that I've copied it from Illustrator, and then I'll go into Photoshop and I would say Command V, and now it pastes this shape into Photoshop. I could actually also just open the image itself, but that doesn't allow me to select a specific part of the image, which is what I want here. So now I can choose to place it as either a smart object, a pixel layer, a path, or a shape layer. So the smart object and the pixels I won't go into, because this is about path and shape layers. So if I wanted to fill it out with a color, I will just choose the shape layer like this, press OK, and there I have my shape. So let's just imagine for a second that we wanted to create a scene with this, and I just want to do this fairly quickly. Let's say we have, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to create a scene with this. So what I really want to do is I want to have some kind of, I'm just going to take this one again, I want to have, let's say, some kind of cliff here. Again, like this. So this is going to be my middle ground or my foreground. And as you can see here, I accidentally had it set to path. So again, what I would do here is I would go back to my layers here and say solid color like this. I will turn off this female again, and what I really want to do is I want to have her standing somewhere in the front here. I want her to be sort of like this. Maybe I want to have her more standing like this in the front here. She's kind of looking down into the abyss or something like that. Maybe I want these to be moved. Oh, I did have something here. So this is her kind of looking down into the abyss here. Now what I really want here is I want this to be darker colors, and I'm just simply choosing some colors here, right? A little bit random, but we have this here. And then I want to have what I want now is I want to have a background of sorts. So I will just create a new layer. I will take my shape tool here with a rectangle tool, and I will create a rectangle. Again, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to be able to change the color as we go along. So I'll do like this, and maybe I'll add a gradient overlay. Linear, let's just say reverse, like this. Maybe it's something like this. Now I have this female standing here in front of her, and the cool thing about this is I can turn this off, I can switch colors here fairly easy and blend things around, and I can even rescale this to whatever size I want to. Now she's standing there a little bit naked, so maybe the last thing, or next to last thing, is I want to, actually before I do that, I want to build up some background here. So what I want to do here is I might want to add something like, let's say we're going to build up some kind of background here. Again, I had it set to that, so that didn't really work for me very well, because I had this one already drawn on the second layer. So I'll just actually delete this again very quickly here. So my bad, I want to create a new layer. I want to create something like okay, I know this is not going to be the best mountain range here, but it will have to do for now. So again, I will add a solid color. In this case here, I might want to say that it's sort of something like this. Again, I might actually want to add some kind of gradient overlay. And in this case, we'll just turn the visibility down a little bit so it's something like this. And actually what I also want to do here is I want to have something like tree tops that are simulating that she's kind of standing in front of sort of the chasm here. So again, I would choose my shape layer, but this time I would use the custom shape tool, and let's just say that I want to use this one here, the tree. So again, I get this tree, it's fairly big, so I want to use it like this. Maybe I think it's a little bit too wide here, so I just want to squeeze it a little bit like this. And maybe, yeah, she's kind of standing here in the shadow of this huge tree that we see in the background. I want to scale it so it kind of fits her size here. And again, I probably want to have it be a similar color to the background there. Yeah, actually I think this looks pretty cool. So I'm just going to do one last thing, and that is I will add some kind of dress to her. just to have it look sort of cool. And again, this time I just want to use the technique where I draw a shape here, and I'm just gonna, in this case here, what I really would like to do is I would like to draw a shape that is cool thing about using shapes is that I can always delete the points later on, but now I have this shape layer here. I will just make it a solid color again, and in this case I think I want to make it into a white because that I think will look better. Now this is pretty much as it is. I think this is maybe a little bit of a skimpy dress, as it were, so maybe I want to add something to this. And in this case here, actually what I want to do is I want to continue with this dress here. So I just want to continue with this color here. Actually, as you could see here, maybe what happened was, since I had it set to path, it actually just draws a new layer, which is not really what I wanted. So I will just delete this layer again here and say this time, since I'm actually at this layer, I want to set this to shape. So now I'm adding to this layer here, and I want to make sure that it's combined shape. So why can't I do that? Well, it doesn't really matter. So let's just say that this is what I want it to be, and this is the shape. So what I'll do is I'll just place it behind her. Actually, that was in the same layer, so that actually works pretty well. Maybe I want to have this dress, maybe I want to have some of her hair sort of flowing as well. So we'll just go into this layer here and add some stuff similar to the other one. As you can see now, without even switching color, it will automatically sort of assume that this is what I'm working with because I'm working in the same layer. So now I've kind of given her, maybe she has some hair here that's kind of flawed. Okay, so I think this actually works pretty well for 5 minutes. I've created an image here. So apart from, of course, working with shape layers like this, just a little add-in to this is that I can always add different stuff from Photoshop. So right now I just want to, for instance, place embedded here. And I think I just downloaded some images here that could be used for something here. So I just want to place this image here. And since this is behind that at the moment, you can't really see what it is. So I will just move this forward a little bit. It's kind of these icy mountains. And these I will just set to multiply. Actually, I want to set them to overlay because that is going to look so much cooler. And I think what I want to do here is I want to use these only as shapes to add to my mountain range. So I will bring these up like this. Like this, and then I want to do something like this, so they're actually only adding shapes to this here, and I want to bring the opacity down a little bit. So what they're really doing is they're just adding a little bit of flavor to my mountains, and if I used more time to this, I could actually make the shapes fit better with some of these shapes and have them look really cool. But for now, you can see the trick here is basically the trick here is basically to use some of the stuff in Photoshop to make things look a little bit more lively than just being a vector drawing. So I've added this, and let's just add some extra stuff down here. I want to say place embedded. And I had this other image here which I felt was something that we could use either as maybe like overlay, no, maybe I will choose the soft light here, no, overlay, screen. I think I'll just use the multiply, and then I'll just go in very quickly and delete some of the stuff here with my brush. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do that. I just want to take this and again add it to this, because the idea here really was just to add something sort of to this area down here that is maybe a little bit more lively. So there you have it. This is a very quick way of working with shape layers. So again, just to reiterate, we have the shape tool over here, which is where you create shapes, but you can also create shapes with the pen tool over here. If you're working with the custom shape tool, you'll have the option of using things up here. And what I haven't said, of course, is that you also have the option of creating a shape with this, and then by right-clicking, you can add it to your shape layer if you want to use it for other things. So if you were to trace a specific element within your graphics, you can then create it and use it again and again and again. So that's just a very quick way of doing something with shapes in Photoshop. And of course, again, I can scale this into whatever scale I need to afterwards. So thank you very much for watching, and this was today's video.